give this to Israel, and I'll look at it afterwards. Okay. Chadash. Here, take this. Can you hear me better? The first word I asked you to explain, I didn't just ask you to translate, I asked you to explain, is Chadash. Chadash, of course, some people wrote for me new. Good. I'm glad you know the meaning of the word. But in the context of the laws of kashrut, we're doing the second page first, the other page. There you go, that's it, Chadash. Chadash refers to, if anybody needs a pen, it's the new wheat, the new crop of wheat. The Torah says you're not allowed to partake of it until you bring the sacrifice in the temple on the 16th of Nisan. Nowadays we don't have the sacrifice, but we have to still wait until the 16th of Nisan is over before we are allowed to use the flour made from the new grain. That's the mitzvah prohibition of Chadash. Chadash is forbidden. The opposite is Yashan. You have to only have. Here's a pencil if you'd like. Would you like a pencil? Oh, please. Okay, that's what I was looking for number one. Number two, Orla. A lot of you got that. It's the 3 first years after a tree is planted, a fruit tree is planted, that its fruit are forbidden for eating. Parashat Kedoshim. And then, in the 4th year, the fruit are holy, and they have to be redeemed if you don't want to take them up to Jerusalem and eat them in Jerusalem. But you may redeem the holiness of the 4th year onto a coin, and then you can have the fruits as mundane, regular fruits. That's number 2, the laws of Orla. Number 3, good morning, Hananel. How are you, sir? Good. Take out the pages that you gave me yesterday, the homework. You better go get it. Yeah, go get it. You need it. Yeah, we're going over it so you know the answers. That's the most important thing. Orla has a second meaning, by the way. What does Orla mean? Foreskin. The foreskin of the circumcision, right? But in this context, it means the fruit of the first 3 years. Number 3, Truma. Truma is. That's right. It's a portion of the produce that you must give to the Kohanim. Nowadays, of course, the Kohanim can't eat it anyways because they're impure and we're impure and the fruit's impure. But we have to separate it off of the food that grows in the land of Israel before the food can be eaten. What's it called? If we don't take off the Truma? What's the food called if we don't take off the Truma? Non-kosher. Good, there's a special word for that. Tevel, exactly. Tevel is non-kosher food because of the tithe has not been taken out. So there's 2 types of Truma actually. Truma Godola is the first Truma that we have to take off and give to the Kohen. And secondly, here you can give this to Gabriel. We're going over these laws of kashrut. This is we started off with some laws about the kashrut of produce in the land of Israel. You have to give the truma, or you have to separate it off and throw it away. So the Truma Godola, nowadays we just take the tiny little amounts because the Kohen can't do anything with it anyways. So the Truma is just a little amount. There is a second type of Truma called Trumat Asser, and that is, after you see number 4, Ma'aser is given to the Levi. The Levi gets 1/10 of the produce of what's left. So it's 98, whatever it is that's left. And so 9.8 would be the 10%. And then the Levi has to give and separate off Trumat Ma'aser. The Levi has to take off Truma from what he received. And that is 10 out of 10, the Torah says explicitly. So that's why nowadays, the way we take off Trumas, we have to take off 1%, which is 10 out of 10, right? A tenth of 10. That's for the Truma Asser, and a little bit for the Truma Godola. Truma that we use the minimal amount. So the amount you have to take off, Halak, that's going to be on the next page, is you take a little more than 1%. That covers the Truma and the Truma, the two types of Truma, Truma Asser and Truma Godola. Anyways, Asser, number 4, goes to the Levi. Nowadays, we just separate it off. The Levi can't really prove that he's a Levi. We don't really give it to him because he doesn't serve in the temple. And Maaser Ani and Maaser Sheni, number 5 and 6, are interesting ones. They switch off with each other. There's a 7-year cycle. What's that called? Shemitah. The 7th year has its own special rules. But in the 6 years, we have 2 parts, 2 cycles within the 6. So there's years 1, 2, and 3. Year 3, 4, 5, 5, and 6. And at the end of each cycle, the 3rd year of each, so it's year 3 and year 6 out of the 7-year cycle, we give Maaser Ani. That means you take an additional tenth, and you give it to a poor person. And on the other years, year 1, 2, 4, and 5, we take that extra tenth and we take it up to Jerusalem and eat it in Jerusalem. And nowadays that we don't have a temple in Jerusalem, you don't have to actually take it to Jerusalem. We redeem the value of that extra tenth onto a coin, and then at the end of the 3-year cycle, we do something called bi'ur ma'asrot, which is getting rid, making sure you've paid all your taxes, sort of clearing house, and then we have to whatever is not being brought up to Jerusalem, the coin, it's not going to be used for anything, gets destroyed, or we redeem its value onto something that's easily destroyed, like we said. Okay, that was 5 and 6. We're up to number 7. So far, so good? So far, so good? It's good to review, no? Especially for Gabriel. Gabriel is a lot of information at once. We're doing it very quickly because it's review. This is just sort of the final summary lesson about kashrut. So I apologize if it's really quick. But if you're very, very sharp, maybe you'll pick up something, and it won't be a total waste of time for you. Number 7, yeah.
Regarding this, just now you said we can spend it on tax. Isn't it spent on ourselves?
Maaser Sheni, we spend it on ourselves in Jerusalem. You have to take the fruits up to Jerusalem. You have to take the fruits up to Jerusalem, and if you don't take the fruits, you take the coin up to Jerusalem and buy food products in Jerusalem with your family for yourselves. Yeah, that's Maaser Sheni. Yes.
Regarding the tax, you're saying?
All of these are called taxes. All these tithes, all things you have to separate off from your produce that you can't, use as you see fit. The rest of it, you use, it's yours.
Okay.
But these have limitations. This has to go, Truma has to go to the Kohen. Maaser has to go to the Levi. Maaser Sheni, you have to take it to Jerusalem. Okay? Maaser Ani, you have to give it to the poor person. Number 7, Kilaim. Kilaim means a forbidden mixture. A forbidden mixture. There are many different types of forbidden mixtures. We're going to see some of them on the next page. I asked you, number 10 on the next page is list all the forbidden mixtures. We'll leave that for the next page. But the word kilai means kilaim is a forbidden mixture. We'll see the details of that later. Number 8, Khala. So I'm very proud of many of you who know Hebrew, learned Hebrew so much, that you can tell me that Khala means bread. It's true. Khala means bread. But in the laws regarding the halachot of how to make things kosher, thank you so much, sir. It's very nice of you. Khala, in context, refers to a specific mitzvah to separate a portion of your dough and give it to the Kohen. That's what Khala means. We learned some of the rules, some of the parameters.
Dough?
Dough. You make bread, you take flour and water, and you mix it together, and you knead it. Before you bake it, you're supposed to take off a little section and give it to the Kohen.
How you write dough?
D-O-U-G-H. It's a very strange language, English.
You? How do you say?
D-O-U-G-H. Dough. It's a strange spelling, but English is a strange language.
Coloring, you 7 it was?
Number 7, kilaim, was forbidden mixtures.
Oh, yes.
And 8, challah, has two meanings. One is the bread, we special bread we eat on Shabbat, but in the context, it also means there's a mitzvah to separate a portion of the dough and give it to the Kohen. Nowadays, the Kohen can't use it, so we just burn it or throw it away in a respectful way in a plastic bag.
But you're saying is minimum is 1.6.
That's right. Below that, if you just use 1 cup of flour to bake a cake, you don't have to take off challah.
Okay.
Even 2, even 3. You need a really the measurement. The minimum measurement of how big the dough is quite large. 1.6 kilo without a bracha, 2.2 kilos with a bracha. Some people, we mentioned, make a point to make lots and lots of bread, make a very, very big dough so that they can do this mitzvah. And you say bracha when you take off the dough, the challah. Yeah. Number 7, number 8, number 9. Bal tashchit. What does bal tashchit mean? Not to destroy. Good. Give me an example. Something you're not allowed to destroy. That it says in the Torah, you're not allowed to destroy. What's the classic example in the Torah of thing you're not allowed to destroy for no good reason? Obviously, if you want to build a new building, you have to tear down the old building. That's allowed. Destruction by itself for no good purpose is the problem. What's the example in the Torah? What do you say, Aaron? You weren't here that day?
No.
Okay.
I read Rav Kook. It seems that Rav Kook doesn't agree to like pick flowers or plants for no good reason.
You're working your way backwards. It's a pasuk in the Torah. Says you're not allowed to. What is it?
When you go out to war,
When you go out to war,
you're not allowed to
To
destroy the
trees?
tree.
to uproot a fruit tree. That's right. You're not allowed to uproot a fruit tree. So, al tashchit et etzah. Al tashchit, do not destroy. It's fruit trees. So fruit trees, but it's true that it gets expanded to any wanton destruction. When I was a kid, they were telling us don't do vandalism, graffiti, ruining things. Kids like to break things. I don't know why. And they would tell us it's bal tashchit. Do not destroy things for any good, no good reason. Number 10, tzar balei chayim. Also, according to many poskim, is a prohibition from the Torah. What is it? Tzar is pain. Balei chayim are animals. Pain to animals. You're not allowed to cause undue pain to animals. There's a debate about how much pain is there an acceptable level of pain. Right? You could say, for example, you put your pack on your donkey. Oy, my poor back. But that's the donkey's job. It's supposed to be working hard. Just like I go to work and I work hard. Okay, I don't work, but I play. I love teaching Torah, and this is work. But most people, they gotta crunch numbers or dig in the field. Whatever it is, they work hard. Same thing, the animal. It's normal for it to do some work, some hard work. You're allowed to put some hardship on animals. What's prohibited is undue pain, unnecessary pain. Some people expand that animal's pain not only when he's working, but also to, most poskim allow you to do whatever you need. For example, what do we do today? We do all sorts of testing on animals, lab testing, right? So maybe it's causing them pain. But we need it to learn. We need it for science. We need it to.
Necessary or
It's necessary, exactly. It's unnecessary or unnecessary, not necessarily that it's part of their work. The question is whether it's for a good reason. It's similar to Baal Tashchit in that way, although if this is, of course, with human beings, or not human beings, but animal beings, who have a higher level of sensitivity of a nervous system. So as the nervous system gets more and more developed, there's more and more an issue of causing them undue pain. So we have to be aware of that. Although most poskim allow you to cause some pain to animals if it's for a good purpose, for whatever, some people say that the chickens are cooped up in the industry, in the pens, in order to get the eggs and more.
wings got cut a little bit.
Sometimes the wings get cut, right? Things like that. So there's debates about this, but the majority of the poskim say that if it's a good reason, if there's a good reason for it, you're not just doing it out of cruelty, then it's allowed. Although there's room to be machmer by all means, yeah.
And fishing, is that also?
Fishing is so that as if it's just for fun, for sport, right? You're gonna catch the fish on a hook, and then you're gonna throw it back. So you're not killing it, so that's nice. But you're causing it pain. So is that worth it?
No.
Just for fun? I don't know. I mean, sport is important too. We need to exercise. What do you say, Gabriel?
I heard that
Yeah, what did you hear?
some fishes don't feel pain.
That's right. That's what I was saying. It depends on how developed the nervous system is. The fish don't have that many nerves. So it could be that you're not causing them much pain, even though they get it. It's hard for us to imagine, right?
Scalpels could have very developing nerves.
Which fish?
Scalpels?
But
I don't know what you're referring to.
The fish with the 8 legs.
Octopus.
Yeah.
Octopus. Octagon. Octa. Eight octopus. Octopus. Yeah. So as the animal gets what could be octopus, you can't eat. It doesn't have fins and scales. But for sport, you're saying.
Fishing, sometimes
Can you eat?
No, not kosher.
It's not kosher. But
Right. Anyways, we're getting sidetracked.
You get the kosher fish or not kosher fish.
Right. So if you're trying to get kosher fish, and by accident you catch a non-kosher fish, well then for sure it's part of a necessary activity. It's just the way fishing is. Sometimes you're going to get something. You don't have your pages from last time?
No.
You want to get them?
Yes, good, but
You don't have
I
them.
did not,
They're lost.
I know they are.
So go get them and you'll be able to fill in the answers. Good morning. Sorry to make you run around.
How about the circus?
Does anybody have an extra pen? Pen. Paper we have. Just a pen. I think Hananel needs a pen. Oh, here's a pen. This is Michael's pen. This is Michael's pen.
It's here.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Here's a pencil. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Destruction of fruit tree.
Yes.
This is all over the world.
It's a big problem. So the question is, sometimes you need to destroy trees to make a road, to make a city. You have to destroy trees. I remember just last week in Tekoa, they made a new parking lot, a new building and a new parking lot, and they needed to get into the parking lot. There was a beautiful olive tree right there in the middle. I thought they were leaving it. I was really excited because they paved around it. The next day I see it's gone. They must have uprooted it. I don't know if they asked the rabbi or not, but I think the rabbi might have said it's okay. If it's necessary, and maybe you make a way that you uproot the tree so that you put it somewhere else, it's not for no good reason. There are rules about it, about how you can get a permission. But the simple understanding is you have to be very careful with fruit trees, not to destroy them for no good reason. Sometimes if you have in your garden a few fruit trees and you want to change, I want to put in a swing set for my grandchildren. Or I don't like the trees, I want to put in... I'm good, thank you. Everybody has now, thank you. You brought for Hananel, it's great. So you want to change up your garden to put in grass because you want to play soccer in your garden. You can't just take up the tree. You can't. It's not so simple to uproot the tree. If it's a fruit tree, if it's not a fruit tree, it's easier. But
To move it, so you take it and you put it like 2 meters.
you should ask a rabbi. It's not so simple. Not so simple. As I said, in the case for the sake of building cities and so forth, the
But how about those companies? They have like a lot of food trays, and my uncle has like this. There's a machine. They take the tree out.
right, amazing.
And they cover it and they sell it to people. On the ground.
Right. So if they planted it in the first place for the sake of like nurseries, they plant trees. In Israel, they usually have it in bags. They put a big bag with earth and the roots, and it's not actually in the ground. It's on top of the ground, and that if it's designed for sale, then I think it's allowed to actually have it in the ground itself. I don't know if that would be allowed. It's interesting.
But is it
Interesting.
Is it a cheating way then if you put it in a bag?
No, I don't think it's cheating.
Like, because I think the rules because it's in the land of Israel. But if you put it in a bag, it's not more in the land of Israel.
Correct. If it's in a bag and it's in earth or a bag, it could be in a planter.
Yes.
And anything, if it's disconnected from the land, so then of course you could move it. It's designed for moving. But there's more detailed rules, and you should consult with a rabbi about each individual question. Depends if there's holes on the bottom of the pot, how big the holes are. There's rules about these laws. You're not allowed to uproot a fruit tree. That was back to number 9. But we're up to 11. Number 11. You don't have the page from last time, Pinchas. You didn't bring it. So you have to share. Because I don't have any more. You can make a copy in the office if you like.
I can send the electronic form.
Oh, Pinchas, would that help you to have an electronic form? Are you on the WhatsApp group, Pinchas? You are. Okay, so send the form. Number 11, Shechita. I hope we know what Shechita means. Shechita is kosher slaughter. There's a very strict and specific way which we have to kill the animal. Look at number 16. Number 16, Novela, is what happens when you don't have a kosher shechita. So there you go. You get number 11 and number 16 are almost opposites of each other. Right? Novela is when you don't have a kosher shechita. The animal that's been killed in other ways is called a novela. Number 12, kisui hadam, is a mitzvah to cover the blood. Only applies to birds and to wild animals, not to the other, the cattle. Number 13, Bechor. Bechor is the firstborn. There are many laws of the firstborn. There's laws of the firstborn human child. There's laws of the firstborn animals. If we're talking about now the laws of kashrut of the animals, a farmer who raises cattle has to give the firstborn to the Kohen. However, the Kohen, the truth is, the law in the Torah is that he has to take it up to Jerusalem, and the Kohen really has to bring it as a sacrifice. But if the Kohen's not going to be able to bring it as a sacrifice, then he's not allowed to do anything with it. So if you give the Kohen your Bechor today of the animals, you're giving him a lot of work with no gain. Unless the animal gets a blemish. Then he doesn't have to bring it as a korban, he gets to eat it himself. But if it doesn't get a blemish, it could be he'll be taking care of Bessie, the firstborn cow. Could be he'll be taking care of that firstborn Bechor. That's just a name. For making fun. Whatever her name is, whatever his name is, the firstborn, he'll be taking care of it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, could be for 20 years, and not getting anything out of it. So most people try to avoid it, and they sell the birthing mother to a non-Jew. And then when the mother gives birth, it's not your cow that's giving birth. You don't have the mitzvah of Bechor, because otherwise it just becomes onerous. It's not really helpful to anybody now that we don't have a Beit HaMikdash. So we sort of avoided the mitzvah of Bechor Behema. We also, Bechor Adam, we do Pidyon Ben. We do the redemption of the firstborn. Number 40, you have a question, yes?
What did the Rav become last week? He did with the donkey, right?
He was going to. I don't know, did he go? Because
Yes.
we canceled the trip.
We go Monday, right?
But we didn't go. The trip was canceled on Monday.
Say, he was even a lamb or something.
So did he go on his own? He went on his own without the whole yeshiva. Yeah, so that's a special exception. The Torah says this mitzvah of Bechor only applies to kosher animals, animals which are fit for bringing on the altar. One exception the Torah says is that for some reason the donkey also has the holiness of the firstborn donkey. You can't eat it. You can't bring it on the Beit HaMikdash. What's it holy for? The Torah says you cannot eat it. You cannot use it. The firstborn donkey is holy unless you redeem it. You switch the holiness from the firstborn donkey to a lamb. And then you give that, it's called redemption. Like Pidyon Ben, like we don't give our firstborn children to God. We redeem the holiness onto a coin, and the coins that we give to the Kohen. The Kohen gets the coins, not the baby. He doesn't want your baby, but he gets your money. And same thing with the firstborn donkey. The Kohen gets the replacement of the donkey. He gets a little lamb.
Can you eat it? Huh?
Yeah.
You cannot eat a donkey. That's right.
The lamb.
The lamb he can eat. Yeah. I think it's not. Doesn't have to be brought as a korban like the bechor. I have to check, but I think it's so rare. Who has donkeys nowadays? Yeah. And who grows donkeys? Who has baby children that are for sure?
Not in this area.
Yeah, but not me. Anyways, so I don't have. This is a very rare mitzvah.
In Khala, there are farms with some donkeys.
It could be, but like we said, with even farmers, usually they avoid the mitzvah of bechor by selling it to a non-Jew. They're selling the mother to a non-Jew because it's not to anybody's benefit. So I would imagine they could do the same trick with donkey as well. As you see a birthing mother donkey for the first time, the first birth, you would sell them to a non-Jew and avoid. But if you want the mitzvah, it's an exciting thing. So then you could do it with the donkey, and then you transfer the holiness onto a sheep, and you give the sheep to Kohen. But it could be that is done because it doesn't have to be brought onto the Beit HaMikdash. I have to check. I can't remember precisely. Yeah. Yeah, he got the lamb. Yeah. Very nice. Well, he does a lot of work for Am Yisrael, for the Jewish people, so he deserves a little lamb.
You know, Jews in the north area of Brazil.
Okay.
They eat a lot of donkeys.
They eat donkeys. Yeah, we're not allowed to. They don't have to keep kosher. They can eat the donkeys.
No, I don't understand.
Yeah.
That's just. And there, the first Jews that came to Brazil was in that area.
Ah, interesting. So maybe they did this mitzvah a lot. Maybe they became donkey farmers and they performed this mitzvah. Very interesting. I have to look up the history of the Jewish community in Brazil. I'm sure there are records. It's fascinating how the Jews went to every country.
Fonseca.
Ah, interesting.
That was relative to not mine. My wife.
Your wife's wow! I didn't know your wife had a Jewish connection. Interesting.
And the same guy made the first synagogue in New York.
Really? What, the Spanish Portuguese synagogue?
There is another name now.
Oh yeah, okay, I don't know. Fascinating. I don't know the history of American communities, South American communities, North American, but it is fascinating. Fascinating, I say. Yes. Next we learned about what number? Kisuyadam we talked about. Next number.
Gid Hanesh.
Gid Hanesh. Bechor. We're up to Gid Hanesh number 14. That's the sciatic nerve. You have to take it away. How do you cut away that specific muscle?
To the Nikur.
Number 18, Nikul. Good. Nikul. Number 15, Terefa. What is Terefa? A sick animal. Very good. Very simple. It's a sick animal. The sages gave us a list of what the different types of blemishes, injuries, which by their estimation, the animal will not live for a year, 12 months. And an animal like that is not kosher. An animal who's sick or injured or ill is not kosher. Even if you give it a proper shechita, it's not kosher. Now, most animals don't have these kind of blemishes. But this became the example of something that maybe it's a kosher type of animal. It has split hooves, chews its cud. It's a goat, and the goat, his brother, is kosher, but he's not because he's injured. He's treif. Became what we call all food which is not kosher. We call it treif because of the word treifa. Yeah.
But we let him. We don't kill him.
You can sell it to a non-Jew. He can eat it. Just you can't.
Otherwise, he is lucky. He's still alive.
He can be alive, right? He can be lucky. He was born probably with a birth defect, but I guess he doesn't get. The truth is, I believe that an animal is happy to be slaughtered and eaten by a Jew. It gets elevated as part of a holy life. So the animals, just like, what does it say that Yaakov laid down when he was running away from Esav? He laid down in a place called Beit El. He called it Beit El, and he had a dream of the ladder. And it says at the beginning that he put his head on the rocks, in plural. And when he got up, it says he took the rock, the one. So the sages tell the following story. It says that the rocks were fighting with each other. Who gets the merit to be the pillow of this great, great tzaddik, this holy man, Yaakov Avinu? So if the rocks are arguing and want to be in service of Yaakov, I'm sure the animals are thrilled to be slaughtered in kosher slaughter and be used on a Shabbat table, or for a holy man who says a bracha before he eats from their flesh. Maybe the animals are happy to be kosher animals.
From that example, can we say even the rocks have certain level of soul?
Yeah, listen, everything was created by God. Godliness is dynamic. Godliness is life. So everything has life, even inanimate objects. But of course, like we were saying, there's a difference between the nervous system of a fish and an animal, a more developed animal, and a human being. So you could say that perhaps it's just a grayscale. It's not a 1 or a 0. So you could attribute life to plants and even to inanimate objects. They have some life force in them, a godliness in them, or they wouldn't be able to exist. But of course, it's a far cry to say that they have intelligence or they have self-awareness. Let's not get carried away here. Let's get carried away. This was a metaphor the rabbis were saying about the stones, that they were trying to teach us about the world, that the world is here to serve Hashem and to serve the tzaddikim who are serving Hashem. Let's continue. The laws of kashrut, number 17, chelev. Chelev. Not chalav.
Forbidden fats.
That's right. Chalav is milk. Chelev is forbidden fat. And nikur, we talked about melicha is, what's melach?
Oh, it's mechilta. Is the mechilta?
No, different word, different spelling. Melach is salt, melicha is salting.
It is salt. This is the salting
This
process.
is salting process, yeah, salting process.
Oh, not mechilta.
No,
Oh,
you wrote wrong, yeah. Melicha. Melicha is a special process that you have to take all the meat, even if it's a kosher animal, and it's not a treifa, you checked, it's not injured, and you give it a proper shechita, and it's not a nevela. It's still not kosher to eat because there's a prohibition of dam, blood. You have to take the blood out that's inside the meat. It's going to come out when you cook it, so you have to get rid of it first. How do you get rid of it? Through two types of processes, either 19 or 20. You can do melicha, which is you soak the meat so it softens up a little bit, then you leave it covered with salt of a certain kind for melicha is not for 3 days. It's for an hour. Usually we do it for an hour. You can do it for as long as you want, but the standard is an hour. And then you rinse off the salt, and then whatever blood, the salt draws out whatever blood is going to come out, and then the rest is considered to be not blood halachically. Number 20, Tilia, is use a different method. Roasting, exactly. You don't have to go through the soaking and the salting and the rinsing. You just roast it on the fire. The fire burns out the blood from inside the meat. The second benefit is at the same time, it roasts it, makes it prepared for eating. So you get to save a stage if you're hungry. It's much faster. Anyways, tilia, but if you don't want to have roasted meat, then it's not ideal. What did we say? There's some body organ which you must use number 20 and not number 19. You must do tilia to get the blood out and not melicha. Only one organ.
The liver.
The liver. The liver. The liver has so much blood that out the blood. You have to roast it out. We learned some of the laws of the roasting. Number 21, this is just review, so we're trying to go quickly. Number 21, basar b'chalav.
Meat and milk?
Meat and milk. That's what it means. What does the Torah have to say about meat and milk?
You have to separate it.
Yeah. In what way? You don't have to separate it. You could keep it in the fridge. Meat here, milk here, no problem.
You're not allowed to prepare or benefit from it.
Yafeh. The halacha says the Torah, the mitzvah is repeated 3 times in the Torah. It teaches us 3 prohibitions of basar b'chalav. One is to eat it. We all know that. One is, right, don't eat that cheeseburger. And number 2, don't even cook the cheeseburger. To stand in the kitchen and to be the one who prepares the food, cooking meat and milk is also prohibited from the Torah. And number 3 is you're not even allowed to have any benefit. If you pay someone to cook up a hamburger for a cheeseburger for you and sell it, you're not allowed to enjoy the benefit from that revenue. You're not allowed to have any benefit from basar b'chalav. Very extreme. Of all the prohibitions in the Torah, it's a very extreme one that says that you're not allowed to eat it, cook it, and have any benefit from it. Who had a question here?
Rabbi, I have a question about the, for example, chicken liver. It's not possible to kosher it by boiling?
Correct. It's not possible.
So it's small, tiny meat.
Yeah. You have to.
What was the reason? I think after boiling, all the blood will come out.
No, boiling actually it keeps the blood inside. It doesn't draw it out, according to the halachic definitions. Okay. Yeah, livers has to be treated separately.
I see.
Number 22, pat akum. That's right. Bread, not meat. pat. Pat means bread. Pita, pat. Pat that's baked by a non-Jew. This is one of the enactments, the prohibitions of the rabbis who wanted to keep us separate from the non-Jews. At one point they said, any bread baked by a non-Jew you can't eat. Nowadays, the enactment is not as severe as it sounds. Because the rabbi said, if you don't have any Jewish bakery, you're allowed to buy bread, and you know the ingredients are kosher. You're allowed to buy bread from a non-Jewish baker, from a bakery. He's baking for everybody, you know the ingredients. That does not follow under the prohibition. You're still not allowed to buy bread from a non-Jewish individual who bakes bread in his home. You're not allowed to have that bread, even if you're going to starve. But if you are in a city where there's no Jewish bakery, there are some breads that you can eat from a bakery if you're sure that they don't put in any non-kosher ingredients. That's pat akum. Akum is a Rashi Tevot. Rashi Tevot is an acronym for Ovdei Kochavim Umazalot, those who worship stars and constellations.
So bread of non-Jew stuff.
Right. But
Pagan bread.
Akum is pagans, right. Those who worship stars and constellations. It's another word for Avodah Zarah, right? But the word Akum was used not to offend the local non-Jews. Another word for Akum is, the original word is Nochri. Nochri or Akum. Many times they're used interchangeably.
It sounds like Nosri.
It sounds like it, but it's not the same. No, I don't think it's a hint. It's just Nechar is a word all on its own, even before there was any Christians in the world. Nechar means the other. It's a pasuk in the Torah. And so you could say Pat Nochri as well, that for number 22. Number 23 is Chalav Nochri. Another enactment of the sages, which says you're not allowed to have milked by a non-Jew. Why not? There's not any non-kosher ingredients. How do you know? Maybe they have a non-kosher animal, and the milk of a non-kosher animal is not kosher. So to ensure that you're only going to drink kosher milk from a kosher animal, you must have rabbinic supervision. A Jew must supervise the milking. And if you don't have that, it's called Chalav Nochri. Chalav Nochri is prohibited. It's well known. Rav Moshe Feinstein and other rabbis said in the modern context, when we have government supervision that makes sure that they don't mix in any other type of milk from the dairy farm, that's good enough, and you're allowed to have Chalav Nochri. Some rabbis, till today, are very strict about it. They say you should only have, what's the opposite of Chalav Nochri? Chalav Yisrael, exactly. Chalav Yisrael. Chalav Yisrael is the way it's pronounced. Chalav Yisrael. Sometimes when you see a product from outside the land of Israel, it'll say on it kosher, and it'll say Chalav Yisrael. All the kosher products in Israel don't say Chalav Yisrael because they're all Chalav Yisrael. There's really very few dairy farmers in Israel that are not Jewish, and so you don't have that problem so much in Israel. So they don't bother to put it onto the label. But when you get something from outside the land of Israel, many times the kosher supervision will say not only is it kosher, but whatever milk is in there is going to be milk that's Chalav Yisrael, that was supervised by Jewish people. Next, 24, Teudat Hechsher, certificate of kosher. When you go to any store or any restaurant, before you buy the food, you have to make sure that it's kosher. You have to look for the Teuda, which means a certificate of kashrut. Hechsher, the word kosher is in there. As you can see in the Hebrew, it's more obvious. Hey, kaf shin reish. Kaf shin reish is kasher. Teudat hechsher. And most organizations use the services. Rabbis are busy. They're studying Torah all day. How are the rabbis going to get smart if they don't study Torah? They have to be studying Torah all day. So if they have to be in the supermarket, if they have to be in the factories, if they have to be in the slaughterhouses all the time, then they're not going to be very good rabbis. But somebody's got to supervise. So they hire people.
Oh, yes.
That people they hire is called a mashgiach, supervisor. He's taught all the laws that he needs to know and what to look out for. And he is the one usually on site in the restaurant, in the factory, to making sure that they do everything according to the rules of kosher. Yes?
Can you, as Rabbi, employ
Yes?
one Jew to make this job?
Sure, why not? A non-Jew, you're saying?
No Jew.
A non-Jew, no.
Non-Jew.
Non-Jew cannot be a mashgiach, no.
No.
You mean a Jew, but you mean if the Rav can anoint people like, hey, from now you do Mashiach.
Sure, of course. All he has to be is knowledgeable enough and trustworthy enough that you trust him. So yeah, nowadays it's become like everything, institutionalized. There's actually a course that you can study and you get a diploma, but that's formalities. Bottom line is, someone has to watch and to be careful that they do things according to the rules. As long as you know what the rules are, there's no formal smicha or anything like that. Nowadays there is a course which you can do. And it's good because more and more complicated, the rules of kosher in the industrial food industry. There's more and more things to be careful about. So it's good to get a training to be a mashgiach. But if the rabbi trusts you and he thinks you know enough, he could appoint you without any training, official training. 26, Halak or glat. This is a type of kosher meat. Some people call it special kosher meat. What makes the meat more kosher? If it was a kosher slaughter, it should be kosher. If it's a kosher animal and it was slaughtered kosher and it's not a treifa, how do you know that it's not a treifa? So mostly we rely on the majority. Most of the animals are not injured, are not ill, are not going to die within a year. So we rely on the majority. The halacha says there's one organ that has to be checked. The lungs of the animal are usually, sometimes, or not usually, but sometimes they have problematic injuries to the lungs. They have little holes in them. Sometimes there's bumps which cover up the little holes. Anyways, so we check the lungs to make sure that the animal is not a treifa, and then the meat from that animal that was kosher, slaughtered kosher, in a kosher manner, is kosher. Here's the rub. I say with a pun. There is a custom called Halak or glat, which they say we're going to check those lungs and it has to come out absolutely smooth. If there's any bump, which is some kind of a lesion, we're going to sell it to the non-Jews. We don't want to make it kosher for us. That limits your meat to a smaller pool. Some animals have these lesions on them. The halacha in most communities was that it doesn't have to come out 100% smooth. Even if there are some lesions, you can check to make sure that despite the lesions, despite these little bumps, that there's no holes in the lung. And if you check them, that there's no holes, then it's kosher. So that's where you get two levels of kosher meat. Regular kosher meat is meat that was checked that it's kosher. And even if there was some kind of a question about it. And the Halak is, it's kosher and there's no questions about it even. There was nothing that needed checking other than that it was totally smooth. The lungs were totally smooth, and that's what Halak means and glat means. And according to some poskim, Sephardi poskim, they're very machmir on this, that you should only eat Halak meat. And so you have to follow your particular rabbi and your particular custom. Yes?
Can you eat vegan if you don't have kosher food?
Of course. Vegan food just means food which is not meat. I think what you're asking is, can you go to a restaurant where they prepare the food for you and they say to you, there's no meat products in here. Is that good enough? Is that what your question is?
No.
No. So what is your question? When you fly, yeah.
They give you.
It's a similar thing. Flying is like a restaurant. Somebody prepared the food. So if it says on the food that it's vegan, I don't think that's good enough. I don't think that's good enough. In the land of Israel, for sure it's not good enough, right? Fruits and vegetables are not kosher.
But if it's packed in.
But if it's outside the land of Israel, so there's no problem of trumot and maasrot. What could be the problem? If they say it's vegetarian or vegan, there's no milk products and there's no meat products, what could be the problem? It's just grains? The answer is, it depends how they prepared it. And maybe they're cheating. Maybe they're putting in some sauces or some spices which come from non-kosher products. It's hard to know what they put in. So listen, when you're pushed against the wall, you've nothing to eat, there's room to be lenient. But in general, you should not think that, any package that says, this is vegan, I don't have to worry about the laws of kosher. A meal on the when I was flying to Australia, my daughter was in Australia for 2 weeks, we flew through Hong Kong, and they didn't have kosher meals for us by accident. We ordered it, but it didn't come. They felt very bad. What's it called? The stewardess. They called over the managers. What can we get you? We want you to have something to eat. It's a long flight. And we said, only fruit. But we can get you a vegetarian meal. I said, no vegetarian meal, just fruit. So they cut up fruit for us, and there was 3 meals. There was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that each time they cut up the fruit in a different way. Same fruit, each time. A plate of fruit. This time it was on the right-hand side of the plate. This time it was on the left-hand side. This was cut in squares. This was cut in triangles. In any case, we had fruit. We knew when you travel and you keep kosher, sometimes things get mixed up and the kosher meal doesn't come. So you always put a sandwich in your bag. You always take some food with you to make sure you have kosher food. But I wouldn't eat a vegetarian dish or a vegan dish that's prepared, because also maybe they prepared it in an oven, the same oven that had leftover spills of non-kosher food. You don't know what happened to it. You have to have proper supervision before you eat food. Fresh food, of course, fresh fruits, vegetables, that's fine.
In my flight,
Yes.
the lady says, vegan is kosher.
Sure, well, she's...
Then I look at her. Look at me.
Yes,
Are you Jew?
yes,
No.
yeah.
So, you are not allowed to touch it.
Oh, ouch.
And she says, who are you? It's not your business.
Okay. All you could have said to her was, my beard is longer than yours. Next time. For next time. But so many people, they mean well. They want to serve you. They want you to have something to eat. They don't know what kosher means. Many people want to convince you that it's okay, but it's not so simple. You can't eat food if it's not supervised unless it's fresh, simple food. But and of course, if you get into a situation where you have a specific, dire need, then you consult with a rabbi if you can, and you can, sometimes you could be more lenient. But in general, if you're flying, bring a sandwich. Okay? I wouldn't offend anybody. And tell them, people think that to make it kosher, it can't be touched by somebody. That makes them feel bad. But there's a lot of rules of kosher. Do they know? Can they answer these 30 words? Do they know how to? Do they know this? Show them this. Say this. Do you know what terefa means? Do you know what nikur is? So how can you tell me that it's kosher? You don't know what kosher means.
And the worst is she was black.
It's okay. What's wrong with black? I'm not into
No,
this.
it's not wrong with black. But she wants to question me.
Yeah, they know better than you. There's a funny story. I hope you appreciate it. One of my Rosh Yeshivas, one of the biggest Torah scholars of the generation, Rabbi Aaron Lichtenstein. He died a couple of years ago, and he was well recognized around the world as one of the leading Torah scholars of the entire world. And he was famous for that, but he was also famous because he didn't have a beard. Of all the rabbis in the world, 99% of them have beards. But this was his custom. His wife didn't like beards. He didn't have a beard. So he was flying on the plane, and he was given his meal. This is the story goes that it was a kosher meal. He ordered a kosher meal, and part of the meal was bread. So he got up to do netilat yadayim. And the stewardess comes over to him and says, listen, this is a special type of bread. It's called mizonot bread. It's made with only no water. It's made only with fruit juice. And so the halacha says that if it's not made with water, it's not considered bread. Now, the matter is a matter of great halachic debate. And the simple halacha is that if you eat the bread as part of your meal, even if it's made with fruit juice and not with water, you have to wash. You have to do netilat yadayim. So, but the stewardess didn't know any of that. She knew that this is bread that you don't have to wash for. Many people don't know this law. Many rabbis, there's a debate amongst the rabbis, let's put it that way. Anyways, so he says to her, that's okay, I think that I still have to go and do netilat yadayim. She was very adamant. She was telling him, no, you don't. You don't have to wash. I don't know if she was even Jewish. I don't know what. But she was telling the greatest rabbi in the world what the law is. And then, he wasn't backing down. And she was very forceful. So she says, listen, I have a solution. I see that in a few rows behind you, there's a rabbi with a very long beard. Let's go ask him. She thought he wasn't a rabbi. She didn't know that he was the greatest rabbi that there is. So it's a funny story. Because he didn't have a beard, she thought that he's not a rabbi, and he didn't know. But she knew the law better than him. Sometimes people, but they mean well. They mean they want you to be happy. But you have to know your halacha. You have to know your halacha. Let's finish. 27, Mahadrin. It's a word for scrupulous, being special, very careful about, strict about your kashrut laws. It's not only about kashrut laws, about mitzvot in general. Many times, to say that something is kosher, they'll say kasher, and then they'll say it's special kosher, they'll say it's kasher limehadrin. Even for those who are very strict about the kashrut laws, it's super kosher. I wanted you to know that word. The 28 is the badatz. Beit Din Tzedek, it stands for. Beit Din Tzedek is a Beit Din it's a group of rabbis who give a kashrut supervision. Usually it's on top of the regular Rabbanut Hechsher. Rabbanut is the standard government system for keeping kosher. Every locale in Israel has a local Rabbanut, which is in charge of the kashrut in their area, in their municipality, and they give kosher supervision. In some places, it's not as kosher as it should be, and it depends on the rabbi and on the system. And so, some people have two kashrut symbols. on their products. Show me the cake right over here, please. I want to show you an example. By the way, this is for you to eat. It's not only to look. So here, there is 2 kashrut supervisions. Number 1, it should say, over here in small letters, here. It says over here, kasher lemehadrin. You can't see it, but trust me. It says kasher lemehadrin. You could also, I'll pass it around afterwards. You could see. Behashgachat. What's hashgacha? Hashgacha. Mashgiach. Hashgacha. Behashgachat. Under the supervision of harabanut. What's rabbanut? Rabbinic. Ha'ezorit. The local rabbanut. Shomron. Shomron. Place in Israel. It's a geographical municipality. So there's a rabbinic organization of the Shomron that gives and says here it's kosher. Wait a minute. If you look over here, there's another one. A second label. And this one says that it's behashgachat, under the supervision of Moshe Yehuda Leib Landa, Rav Av Beit Din de Bnei Brak. It's another rabbinic organization which gives kashrut. Why do you need 2? You have the rabbi of the Shomron who already tells you it's kosher. Why do you need a rabbi from Bnei Brak to tell you it's kosher? Some people say, I don't know who the rabbanut in Shomron is. I know who Rabbi Landa is. Rabbi Landa, very well respected, a very serious organization. So they say this is not kosher enough. Even though it's a good rabbi, I actually know the rabbi. They don't know. They say Bnei Brak. That's more kosher. Sometimes I find a product that has 2 kosher signs, sometimes 3 kosher signs. I've seen 5 kosher labels because they want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable.
What is the most you can put on?
No upper limit. You could have 100 if you want. You pay each rabbi. And sometimes it's a joke because the rabbis know that the other rabbi is good enough. But he'll take the money because he knows his name is worth money. So he doesn't have to do anything. Yeah. You had that situation? You were a mashgiach for a while?
I went 2 times. But then they say, you don't do it. You are not qualified.
Oh, really? You needed a qualification. I see. It also says, look at this. Kasher, parve, hufresha challah kadin. Khala was separated from the dough. It says that challah was taken off. This is one of the rules of baked goods. In a bakery, they have more than 2.2 kilos of flour. They make big doughs, and then they make small cakes out of it. You have to take off the challah for it to be kosher. So it says here, kasher hufresha. Why doesn't it say that there was kosher shechita? It's not meat, of course. Other ones say that hufreshu. This one doesn't say it. Trumot u'maasrot. Sometimes it says in the kashrut. It says Khala, but also you need to take off Truma and Maser, all the other things. So you can pass this around, take a look at the 2 kashrut labels to see what they look like. Yes, Aaron?
Is it common for one mashgiach to work for several organizations?
I believe so.
That one,
I don't know how common it is, but it does.
To get several labels.
It does happen. Yes, the company wants the few labels because each community only trusts their rabbi and their label. So, yeah.
Women's rabbi, or what do you call it?
I don't know.
Rabbanut, or what is it?
I don't know. There's
Say
many.
that you,
The Orthodox world really doesn't have women rabbis. There's a new development that usually 9 out of 10, 99% of women rabbis are not Orthodox. There's a small group now of Orthodox rabbis who are ordinating women as rabbis. But I think that's not what you're asking about. I think what you're asking about is, can a woman be a mashgicha? Can she be a kosher supervisor? It's not the woman is the rabbi. The Orthodox rabbi is a man, but he can appoint somebody to supervise for him.
That is woman.
That can be a woman, and more it's being used in different organizations, kashrut organizations. There's no question that that's allowed. The question is whether it's a good idea, whether it's advisable. Because we mentioned it the other day that sometimes there's fighting, sometimes there's...
Why is it a problem?
We talked about it the other day. In some restaurants, there's a lot of men, and it's not an easy job. Men with knives around a woman telling them not to do this or not to do that could be a dangerous situation. But I don't think that I don't think it should be disqualified across the board. Of course. In some ways, it's the most natural thing. Every home in the world has a woman mashgicha, right? You come home, you eat the food that she prepared. Who says it's kosher? She does. She's the mashgicha. So, of course, it's allowed halachically. In the public sphere, in the industrial world, it's a question of how to make that work and to make it feasible. But I think there's no reason they shouldn't. If you solve all the problems, it's totally kosher. Yeah, another question, yeah.
Is a woman allowed to teach men if a woman is a rabbinit?
That's a separate question about tzniut. That's a question of tzniut, right? Is it considered modest for a woman to stand up in front of men and present? So the truth is, we live in the modern world. I went to school, you went to school. We had men or women teachers, women professors, there are women in the government, they're leaders in companies, and women are presenting all the time in front of men. So it could be that it's more acceptable today. But if a woman knows more Torah and she wants to teach men Torah to the men, there's nothing explicitly prohibited about that. Question is context, always context, But if the woman is tzanua and modest, some rabbis don't like it. They says you're mixing the sexes, and it's part of reform, and depends on the context.
They call themselves rabbanit.
So there are. That's already women rabbis. That's the question. Yeah. No, a rabbanit could be a woman rabbi. It could be the wife of a rabbi. Rabbanit could just mean the wife of a rabbi. She's not officially been appointed or anything like that. It's an easy way to get a title. Marry a rabbi and you become a rabbanit. That's it. But there are more and more learned women who actually study at a very high level.
What's the difference between Rebbetzin and Rabbanit?
Nothing. Rebbetzin is Yiddish and Rabbanit is Hebrew. Socially, it depends on the context. Yeah. My wife, for example, yes, Eitan, you asked about the women teaching. So this coming Motzei Shabbat, it's the Azkara for a friend of ours who died. Azkara, memorial, your side, memorial. So every year now it's going to be, I think, 30 years, more than 30 years, where her friend passed away. And every year the family and friends gather to remember her. And every year they give us, someone gives a shi'ur. So they asked my wife to give the shi'ur. And in this community, it's acceptable. In this community, even though there are men and women in the crowd, nobody considers it to be immodest. And it doesn't offend anybody's sensibilities. But there are other communities where a woman would only give shiur to women. But for a woman to give shiur in front of men, it depends on the standards of the community. It's a different question altogether, yeah.
An example, not you personally,
Okay.
but I go to Synagogue, sit down there, they become a woman and take place of Rabbi. Then I get a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Did I go? Did I stay?
Right.
I look, nobody
Right.
went away.
Right.
So, I think so, you stay.
Okay. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
but
It's complicated, sure. It's a topic for another class about the place of women in Judaism, and there is some synagogues where they allow the woman to give a lecture, a Torah, a drasha, even in the synagogue.
Last thing they had it. So that's one.
Yeah. So it depends. Nowadays you have to know: is it an Orthodox congregation? Is it conservative? Is it Reform? There they have the men and women sitting together. That's not allowed according to halacha. But if they're keeping halacha, if they're Orthodox, and they follow the custom that women can speak in front of men, even in the synagogue, I don't think it's forbidden. It's not forbidden. I don't like it. I feel a little uncomfortable. I think the synagogue should remain separate as
but
much
they
as
can
possible.
be separate.
That's right.
The woman is here, and we are here.
Right.
But she is
Standing in the middle. Yeah, we have that in our synagogue where I pray. They have women give drashot in the shul, even though, of course, it's totally, there's a mechitza and everything. It's an Orthodox community, but they have women giving drashot sometimes. As I said, I don't think it's prohibited. I don't like it personally, but I don't like it. I think the separation of women in the synagogue, it's too close to tefillah. Tefillah has to be totally separate. And even though this is Torah, it's not tefillah. But I understand why they want to. Women want to feel that they're part of the community. If they're part of the community and just sitting behind the mechitza, many women don't like it. They feel separate. And I understand the need. But personally, I'm just telling you my feeling or whatever. I sit there, I listen. There's nothing wrong with it. But
especially in Israel.
You think? I think in America too. There are many communities. Many. It's a very small minority, but there are significant amount of communities that allow the women to speak in front of men, even in the synagogue. Some rabbis go in the middle. They say, we'll allow the women to speak, but not in the synagogue. And again, in the modern world we live in, if the woman is presenting, you're watching the news, and the woman is telling you the news. No, but if it's Torah, I can't listen to it. It's very hard to make that distinction. It's very hard to make that distinction.
But the problem is that they put me out because was a woman singing.
Women singing is a bigger problem. Women, leading the services is another problem. But again, it's another topic. We'll leave it for another day.
She's my friend. But you are man, go.
Right. It's a bigger topic. I want to just finish off our list. We're on the last one. Number 30 is mevushal. Mevushal, what does that refer to? What it means is cooked. But what does that mean in terms of kosher? Where do we have that? Why is it significant that something is cooked or not cooked? Refers to wine. Wine is not kosher if it's handled by a non-Jew, unless the wine has been cooked. Mevushal, the Talmud says there's no service to non-Jewish gods with wine that has been tampered with, wine that has anything added to it, or that's been processed, like bishul. Nowadays, there are some wineries which pasteurize their wine, and according to most rabbis, or many rabbis, I'm not sure how many, according to most rabbis, I think that's considered yayin mevushal. And if the yayin is mevushal, then it can be handled by a non-Jew, and there's no problem. Yes?
Can you not say like, today, modern day, a lot of people don't believe, are atheists, don't do avodah zarah. We don't do this rule anymore. Why we still do this rule?
Right.
Because of tradition.
Yeah. This is the strongest of the three rabbinic prohibitions. The strongest one is on wine. Is there any wine handled by any non-Jew, even if he's not a pagan, even if he doesn't believe in anything, any non-Jew who handles the wine, you're not allowed to drink it. We studied it in greater detail. We mentioned that there's a second problem other than just the avodah zarah, and that is the mixing. that could lead to assimilation and intermarriage. And, so it's a social problem. The rabbis wanted to make sure that we have our own community. If we intermarry, there'll be no more Jews before you know it. So it's a big problem.
That's a joke.
Please, tell me a joke.
But you never mind, you're black.
Never mind. Yeah. The laws of the Torah apply to every Jew of every color and every race. If you are Jewish, then you have to keep the laws of the Torah. Whether that proves that we're really not discriminatory. We're not racist. You have to become Jewish, and you have to be Jewish or become Jewish. But once you are, you have to keep the laws just like anybody else. Yeah, you wanted to ask a question, Pinchas? You wanted to say something? Where does it say chalav?
Sugar.
Show me. Where does it say chalavi?
The red one.
That's what I talked also before. I talked also it was a kosher.
Levi?
This sign, I understand the question.
This one, yeah.
Show me. What do you mean? What do you mean? I'll explain. Chalva is a special food made from sesame seeds. It has nothing to do with milk. It's a name of this. They put in taste, so you can taste chocolate and taste of chalva. Chalva is a sesame seed processed. You process the sesame seeds, you grind them up together, and it makes a paste, and then it hardens, and then you buy it, and you can eat it as a sweet, as a tasty, very tasty. And so they say this has chocolate taste and chalva taste. I doubt that there's real chalva in here. It's probably just taste. Just they added, but it is not chalav. Chalva is not chalav. No. This, I thought you were asking about this. This is an interesting picture too, because the picture is, it looks like butter to me with a knife. What is it doing there? There's no butter in here, because it's parva. How could there be butter in there? Why is this picture on here? These pictures are just about a year or 2 years old. The Israeli government made a new law because they said too many people are getting fat. Too many people are getting unhealthy, diabetic. Why? Because they eat too much. In all these processed foods, there's too much sugar and too much fat. And so they made a law. If there's X amount of sugar in the product, you have to put this red circle with a picture of a teaspoon with sugar on it. It says, Sukar bekamut gvoha. There's sugar on a very high level. And if there's less than the X amount of sugar, you don't have to put this on. Also, the second circle is Shuman ravui bekamut gvoha. Saturated fats on a very high level. Saturated fats is a certain type of fat which is very bad for you. It's not good for you. Many oils have saturated fats. So, but more importantly, famously, butter has a lot of fat in there. And so for their symbol, they put a stick of butter with a knife, just like they put you should know, when you have a piece of cake, it's like you're taking a teaspoon of sugar and you're like taking a slab of butter. But there's no butter in here. It's the symbol they used for fats, saturated fats. That's this warning. It's a health warning. This has nothing to do with kosher. You should be healthy as well. To follow the Torah. The Torah wants you to be healthy. And so don't have this cake. Even though it says kosher, and it says kosher, there's two kinds of kosher symbols. These tell you, not so kosher. It's not healthy for you. And you're supposed to be healthy. The Torah says you should be very careful to guard your souls, meaning your bodies. you have to guard your bodies and be healthy. So only have one piece.
Do you have a label for salt?
You have to go,
Like
okay, sure.
High amount of salt?
Sodium. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think they might. It might be blue or something.
High
Blood pressure. Yeah, I'm not sure if they have that as a law, labeling high sodium. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Or some pickles.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Cheese is a big problem, as I understand.
It has fat and salt. A lot. It's very fatty. Some cheeses. Yeah.
When they are kosher, then we're not kosher.
The issue of kosher. So we talked about that. I guess we could review, and we said that just like there is a prohibition on chalav akum. Who remembers what chalav akum is, or chalav nochri? Chalav akum.
It's from the heathens, pagans, again.
That's right. It's
Akum.
That's right. Milk which was not supervised.
Right.
Milk which was milked by non-Jews. It's not kosher. Unless you rely on the leniency that there's government supervision. But just like chalav akum is not allowed, so too cheese, gvinat akum, is not allowed. You can't have cheese unless it's supervised as kosher. And cheese is a little more complicated because in the day they would use actual animal products to make the cheese. The rennet, they would actually inside an intestine, inside a stomach, inside a non-kosher stomach. So that might be more of a problem. But nowadays, do we use enzymes, and it's all made in the lab to make cheese? Most places, obviously, specialty cheeses, you have to be careful. But today, still, you must have kashrut supervision on cheese. Except we said there's a few exceptions. What did we say?
Spread cheese.
Soft cheeses, you can be lenient. And what else do we say? Yogurts or whey, right? Like a milk made from the milk from, made from not milk but from the water whey. It's a part of when they separate the milk from the fat, the liquids from the fat in the milk. It's sort of like a byproduct of milk. And there are some rabbis who say you can be lenient about that. In general, you should look for kosher supervision. And you have to rely on, if you live in a country that doesn't have a proper rabbinic organization, then you have to rely on everything we're learning about these leniencies. But in general, most hard cheeses, you have to have kashrut supervision. That's the standard. Yeah.
I just checked, for example, the label of the local cheese. It says natran with kamut.
There you go, natran, sodium. Yeah, there is a label for sodium as well, right? So see that? So this cake is actually very healthy. Because it doesn't say that there's a high level of salt. Very healthy. Okay. If it was really unhealthy, it would have 3 red labels. It only has 2. Of course, I'm joking. Anyways, yeah, in Israel, you should. It's in a big. There's so much kosher available. Look for the kosher symbol. Don't rely on these other leniencies. Okay, so we finished 1 out of the 2 pages about review of the laws of kosher. We didn't get to the laws of Purim today. But we will tomorrow. Are there any other questions about kashrut? Yes, Hananel.
Do you know how to hear a proper portion of Shemitah? Do you know even the chicken? Do you know?
So I know some of the laws, but I've never practiced. I have a knife. I showed you. You weren't here that day, probably. Someone gave me a gift of a kosher shechita knife, but I don't practice shechita myself. Yes.
We can learn it all together. You
Yeah, that would be nice. We should have a party, and I could show you how to do shechita, and then we could have a meal. We could roast up the chicken and get rid of the blood. That would be a great idea. But I'm not qualified to do shechita. Yeah, yet. Yes. You're not allowed to eat. You can't eat it. You can't eat it. You can pull it out of the animal, and the rest of the animal you can eat. But that part you have to take out. Some people find it very time-consuming. It could take over an hour to pull it out with all of the branches and all the pieces of that piece of the animal. And so some people say, I don't want to bother with it. I'll sell this to the non-Jews. Let the Arabs eat the hind legs of the animal, right? This Gid HaNasheh is only in the back legs. The rest of the animal I'll use for myself. I'll take out the chelev, but to take out the Gid HaNasheh is too much work. And so sometimes they sell it to others. But you can, if you know, you have to be really an expert to take out all the pieces and sections of the Gid HaNasheh. Does that answer your question? You have to be a professional Menachem to do nikur. It's the special task of taking out the forbidden Gid HaNasheh. It means to pick out, literally. Lenaker means to pick, because this is kosher, this is not kosher. You have to know which is which and get rid of it. Be very careful to get all the non-kosher parts. Okay?
Rabbi, can a non-Jews learn this shechita and do the shechita on behalf of the Jews? Okay?
Nope. No. All the mitzvot of the Torah have to be performed by Jews. You have to be obligated in order to perform a mitzvah. And if you're not Jewish, then you can do it for a non-Jew, but the non-Jew doesn't have to eat kosher. But not for a Jewish person. Be'ezrat Hashem, you'll be Jewish. Be'ezrat Hashem, you'll be Jewish. Sooner or later. We're not giving up on you. Be'ezrat Hashem. All right? Seder. So we learned the laws of kashrut again. I don't know if you can change the title after the fact, but it's not the laws of Purim. We did review of last week's lesson. Hope you learned from it. Doing the work, doing the homework is important. We still have one more page, maybe another day. Okay, we'll stop here for today.